All right, so welcome back to the part 2. So today we're going to be doing the interior of the bag. This is where we left off. We had finished the exterior of the bag. So I'm going to put this aside and we're going to get started. So I'm just going to recap real quick. This is the Loretta from Shamballa Bags. And today we'll be doing the interior of the bag. So we'll be completing the recessed zipper. We'll be completing the double slip pocket, the zipper, and attaching everything together. All right, well, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be starting out on page 30, and we'll be working on the double slip pocket assembly. If you haven't downloaded it already, you can go to the Shamballa website and get the free extra part on there for the double slip assembly, or you can just follow along in the video. You're going to go ahead and cut out your pattern piece and stick it together with some tape. You're going to need to go ahead and mark out your notches right here because we're going to need to mark those on the pattern to transfer them over, and then your sew line, okay? You do need your front middle part, which is going to be the 8 3/4 by 9 5/8, which we'll be working on. I went ahead and marked it down as instructed in the pattern. It's going to be 1 1/4 inches down. I did calculate that to be 2 5/8 inches from the bottom. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our slip pocket. I went ahead and ironed mine down so that it stays where I want it to be. You're going to go ahead and fold down a line. You're going to mark 3/4 of an inch and fold it down to 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. And then what I found was more useful for me to make it work right for me, then go ahead and fold it down. And then we're going to go ahead and fold this together like this. You're going to put some clips on here and make sure everything is lined up straight. And then I will add bigger clips to it on the top, so that it stays in place while I'm sewing it. We're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to be sewing a 1/8 of an inch top stitch. Okay, we'll go meet you at the sewing machine. Okay, so we'll be sewing a 1/8 of an inch top stitch on here. So what I find helpful for me is going ahead and putting the needle down first and then taking 1 stitch forward and a stitch back. Go ahead and cut your threads, and then I'll meet you back over at the prep table. All right, this is what it looks like from the front. Now I want you to put some double stick-sided tape here on the left side, and again, some on here. You're going to measure up 2 5/8 of an inch and mark it with an erasable pen, and come down 1 1/4 inch and mark it with an erasable pen, okay? What I want you to do is go ahead and clip this in place. Go ahead and clip it on this side, just so it doesn't move and we know that was square. Now we're going to go into the sewing room and we're going to sew from the bottom up. And then I'm going to come back over here and secure this as well at 1/8 of an inch. And then we'll come back and we'll work on the pleated pocket. Okay, so we're back at the sewing table. So we're going to go ahead on the line that you drew. You're going to start a little bit forward, bringing your needle in the downward position. And then you can go ahead and go back. And then come forward. And then I'm going to go back and forward one more time. Just because I know that area gets a lot of stress, okay? Now, holding your hands straight, you're going to come straight down this and we're going to stop right here. And we're going to do the same thing, securing it, back stitching. Okay, take 2 stitches back, 2 stitches forward, and I like to go 2 more stitches back. Go ahead and take that off, pull your threads, and pull them to the back and tie them off because this area gets a lot of high traffic and it will pop possibly. So I would suggest highly that you pull both of your stitches back. Okay, on this side, we'll be sewing a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to tack that side in place. Back stitch in the beginning and the end. And back stitch well. The next step that we'll be doing is I'm going to have you push this out of the way, coming over this way, and then bring it back only here on the edge, right here, on the corner. Only on that area there, and then clip it in place. You're going to come up here on top, lining yourself up with the 1 1/4 inch mark, and you're going to back stitch well in the beginning and the end and making sure that this is staying straight. It's a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance for the tack stitch. When we get to the bottom, do not take your needle out. We're going to continue on and make the darts. I have a video from the other Secret Sew where we did go ahead and make that, and it'll be a little bit closer up. It's just different fabric. So in case I'm not showing you close enough here, you can see it there. When you get down here, backstitch well. Then line yourself up at the 1/8 of an inch mark. You're going to take your pleats where your pleat is, which is right here. You're going to pick up the middle pleat and put it together with the mark line, which is right here. Get my tweezers. So basically these two are going to be pinched together like this, okay? Just like this. So you have your line, and your center line. You're going to pinch those two together, lining it up on that line that we drew, which was the 2 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. You're going to fold this over towards the seam allowance. So we're going to hold that in place with the tweezers. I hope you guys can see, but you can see on that other video playing in the upper right hand corner. When you get past your dart, what I want you to do is backstitch over your dart. Okay, now we're going to continue on. You can go ahead and take your tweezers or whatever tool you have to use. You can even use your fingers. You're going to pull the excess material over to the center line, which we just stitched, lining everything back up on this 2 3/8 of an inch line. So it looks like this, okay? This is forward, this is back. Keeping this straight. You're going to come forward. And then go ahead and backstitch where the dart was. Now we're going to continue sewing straight through here and ending up here and backstitching at the end. Okay, go ahead and cut off your threads and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what it looks like from the bottom. They're all nice and snug, kind of look like a letter E. And that's what it looks like on the bottom. And this is the top area. Now we're going to go ahead and get the side panels, get them put on and sew them on at 1/4 inch. And the next step we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the side panels. There's 4 of these. I kind of went too fast to this in the Secret Sew, so I just want to point out there is 4 of these. There's 2 left, there's 2 right. When you cut them out, make sure you mirror the pattern piece, okay? So, and walk this across. Check it from the back side. Make sure everything is flush, just like this. Okay? That will secure that and that will hold that in place. Because the 2 important pieces for this is here and here. And this will be 1/4 inch seam allowance. They will flip open to the outside. I will go ahead and tack them down to the 5/8 of an inch mark, which we've discussed earlier, why I do that. As long as you're tugging it straight, it will work and it will match. And then we're going to come back and get your zipper ready and get your back panel ready so we can start working on that on page 30, number 50. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start working on the back lining area, okay? So that's the bottom lining piece from the back. Then you're going to need your zipper pocket. Everything else is cut exactly to size as suggested. You need your zipper pull and your zipper, and it is a number 5. So to start out, we're going to take our zipper. It's going to go just like this. Now, you have your zipper pocket, and everything lines up to the left. I'm going to flip that over and just double check it, make sure everything looks good. You want this flush on the top. You will need your zipper put on so that you can hit your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I do recommend putting a zipper foot on for this. Be sure to backstitch in the beginning and the end. Go ahead and pull it off and cut your threads. Okay, so once you cut your threads, go ahead and run a piece of tape at that 5/8 of an inch line because that's what we'll be folding it to. Okay, so once you do that, you're going to bring it over to the front side and you're going to brayer the edge down so you can go ahead and sew it. So that's what it looks like from the back side, and this is what it looks like from the front side. Top stitch from the top 1/8 of an inch all the way across, back stitching in the beginning and the end. Okay, so when it's finished, it looks like this. The lining side up to the zipper, and we're going to put the top piece on there and turn that around. Be right back. And while you're back here, I like to just go ahead and push this down with my fingers. So flip this back over, and I'm going to put a couple of clips on here. Again, we'll be sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we'll be flipping it to the 5/8 of an inch line and top stitching. Okay, I'm going to go back over to the sewing machine. My camera is being weird today, and it shut itself off again. So you're going to back stitch in the beginning and the end. And go all the way through and then back stitch at the end. Go ahead and cut your threads. And then we're going to go back over to the table. We're going to flip the seam allowance down and get this ready to be closed up. Okay, so I went ahead and put my tape here. I went ahead and turned it around the other way. You just want to make sure that it's straight. So yes, if I measure the opening all together, it's 5/8 of an inch. So from top to bottom, it's 5/8 of an inch on this opening right here. As you're going to put your zipper pull on before you do the top stitching up here. So I'm going to flip this open. Looks just like this. And I'm going to open up my zipper. And I'm going to go ahead and put my zipper pull on. I'm going to go ahead and pin this here. And pin it here so I don't accidentally pull my zipper pull out before I get to close it off. Come over 1/8 of an inch and then back down 1/8 of an inch to close that up. Okay, see you back at the sewing machine. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close up this pocket at the same time that we're doing our top stitching. So I'm going to start over here in the corner where my pocket starts. And I'll be sewing a 1/8 of an inch top stitch. Be sure to back stitch in the beginning and the end. And at the same time, we'll be closing up the zipper. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this around, and I'm going to sew my 1/8 of an inch top stitch at the same time. Okay, be sure to get your zipper out of the way while you're doing it. Be sure to go ahead and back stitch right there. And then you're going to turn this around, and we're going to be sewing a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance again to close this back up. Okay, that's it. We're going to go back to the table. We're going to true up our zipper. So we'll be cutting these pieces off right here and make sure this is straight there. And then we're going to make sure that this is the proper size, okay? Okay, so we just got back from the sewing machine and we got everything sewn down here. The next step you want to do, make sure your zipper's out of the way. And you're going to go ahead and true up your zipper right there. Be sure that you're keeping this flat and put a lot of pressure right there because when you're cutting this, it's a lot of thick layers. Just go ahead and true it up. So that's where it's trued up now. Now I'm going to come back on this side and move the zipper out of the way and just make sure that this is also trued up where that zipper was. Only where the zipper is. And you know I say it a lot. Things get shifted and moved while you're sewing. So I got a little bit of piece right there I had to take off. Now this is all trued up and it's clean. So now that this is trued up in the way that I want it to be, now I'm going to run a piece of 1/8 of an inch tape down my sides here. Go ahead and brayer your tape down one more time so it comes off in a clean slope. We're going to remove the tape on all of them and we're going to go ahead and put these on. So just to be clear, you want it square in the corner and you want it square on the top. Once you get it the way you like it, put a clip. You look at it from the other side and make sure it's squared, okay? Then you're going to turn it down this way and you're also going to put that on squared from the bottom and the side. So this is what it looks like from that side. You can add a couple of clips there to make sure that it holds. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and true this up again. Okay, now we're going to take both pieces, the front and the back, and we're going to go ahead and sew the 1/4 inch seam allowance So we're doing both the front and the back at the same time. With the side panels, it's 1/4 of an inch back stitch in the beginning and the end. I did switch back to my normal skinny foot, and my stitch length is still set at 4.5. When I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and go off, and we're going to go ahead and press that down with the iron and come back and do top stitching on top of them so they all match. Go ahead and cut off your threads. And cut up all your threads. And if you did everything right, this will all match up. That's what that looks like. That is beautiful. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to tape off this here. You're going to take your sides here and line them up, line up these, line up these, and line up these. If they all match, you're a winner. Mind you, I'm a winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So when I go to flip this open and sew that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, these are going to match up automatically. I have no problem. Now we're going to go ahead and sew 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on these side panels. And then we're going to go back into the sewing room and we're going to start working on the recessed zipper. Okay? So we're going to be sewing a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance back stitch in the beginning and the end. If you have a walking foot, you may have to adjust it in the zipper area with a hump jumper. I have mine turned up, the dial turned up to 3 on my machine, so I don't have to do that. Okay, back stitch at the end. I'm going to go ahead and do the other 3 side panels, and I'll be forwarding through all of those, but it's going to be the exact same thing. 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching in the beginning and the end. Okay, so we just got back from the sewing machine and we got our top stitching done here on the front and the back. Go ahead and make sure you have your centers marked on both pieces and make sure that everything is trued up. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the recessed zipper ready to go. All right. So if you've been following along in the PDF as we go, we just finished page 33. And now we're going to be starting page 34. You're going to need your zipper tape. Then you're going to need your 4 zipper panels. I went ahead and made one already offline. You need to go ahead and mark your sides at 3/4 of an inch on each side. And then flip it over and 3/4 inch on that side. Put some double-sided tape, and then you're going to fold this in. You need 1 master. He says what goes, all right? So I already finished, oh, you need your zipper pull as well. I already finished these ones as well offline, so we're ready to go. Okay, so you have this all marked and you have tape on there. Now you're going to take that side and fold it to match the other one, lining up the tabs so they're exactly the same. So now they're flush. I'm going to take another ruler and I'm going to come in and mark 3/8 of an inch because that's where my zipper is going to start on both of them. I go ahead and mark 3/8 of an inch, okay? The next step that I'm going to have you do is go ahead and take your double-sided tape, so you can put your zipper on, and put tape from one side to the other. You have your zipper that's been allowed. I want you to mark 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inch. If you are going to do this, please be careful that you do not burn yourself, because by no means am I telling you to do this to get burned. You don't have to do this. You can sew it, you can pin it, you can glue it. This is the method that I use. So you have a 3/4 of an inch mark and a 1/2 inch mark. I want you to fold it down to this 1.5 inch line, which should be at 3/4, okay? Then go ahead and run your lighter on there and be careful not to burn yourself. You don't have to do this method. This is what I do. So that one's done. I'm going to flip it over to the other side now. Then I want you to do is go ahead and open up your zipper from this side. There you go. And you can pull it down just a little bit, okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to take this little cone piece and push it towards the zipper. So I popped it up just a little bit so it was straight. I'm going to go ahead and trim off my excess and go ahead and burn it. Do not burn yourself. This is at your own risk. I'm not responsible. So that's nice and burned in place where it belongs, okay? Then you're going to do the exact same thing on this side. Is left. I'm going to pull this open. I already have that cut there. I'm going to put my zipper on, just to make sure that everything is correct. That's why I'm doing this. Because I don't want to get in there and sew this together and find out that my zipper doesn't work, okay? All right, so now that we've established that this is the way it belongs, we're going to take your first one, which is your front recess zipper. Go ahead and remove the tape. So your zipper's sitting like this. You're going to fold it directly down. This is going to go on that 3/8 of an inch mark. And just go ahead and put it there. And come all the way down. And just double check nothing is shifted. Then go ahead and take your zipper off with this piece and set it aside. You don't want to go past your zipper. And then go ahead and remove your tape. And then pick whichever one you want. I'll pick this one, it's just random. You're going to go ahead and put this on here. Make sure the edges are lined up. And make sure everything is lined up. Okay, I'm going to put that aside for now. And we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. Okay, so we're going to take both of these pieces and we're going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure that everything is correct. Okay, this is a 1/4 inch construction stitch. And be sure that we're only going to start right here. You don't want to go past it, so you want to put your needle down right there. I'm going to stick my needle in right at the line where I want it to stop. And go ahead and go down with my needle. Turn my machine on. Remove this clip. And we're going to go ahead and go forward 1 or 2 stitches and back 1 or 2 stitches. And it's 1/4 inch construction stitch on both pieces with your zipper put on. And then I want you to come forward to the end. Do not go off of it, just right at the end. Bring your needle down and then go ahead and back stitch 2 stitches. And go back forward 2 stitches. And go ahead and pull it off and cut your threads. Okay, go ahead and remove your clips. Okay, so this is basically like a no-brainer, okay? What I like to do is I like to start on the top piece. So remove your tape, flip this over, pull your top piece forward, come back over here and look at it, make sure it looks straight, and it looks pretty straight to me. Now I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to pre-fold this down. Closing up the recess zipper. We'll come back over here, check the zipper to make sure it works, and then we're going to start assembling the front and the back so that it's finished, okay? See you in the sewing room. Okay, we are doing the recess zipper, and we're doing the recess zipper top stitches at 1/8 of an inch. I'm starting on the middle back part of the recess zipper. Go ahead and hold your threads or back tack just a little bit. I do have my zipper put on. Go ahead and do 1/8 of an inch stitch. You're going to come up to the corner and pivot at 1/8 of an inch. I like to go ahead and back stitch one and then turn it. Then we're just going to go ahead and continue on here. Go ahead and cut your threads from before. Teddy's looking at me like, okay, Mommy, I'll cut my threads. I'm a good sewer. He's standing next to me on the floor, looking straight up at me. It's so cute. Oh my God, he's so cute. Yes, you're cute, but Mommy's sewing. Okay, so we're going to finish this up with that 1/8 of an inch and come all the way down. And go ahead and just do a couple of stitches past your original stitches. Back stitch, and then we're going to go back over to the work table and we're going to start assembling this together. Okay, so this is what we'll be working on next. We're going to be putting the recess zipper to this, and we'll be putting the zipper pull on here so you can see it real quick, and then we'll be adding that to it as well. Now, we were just finished on page 34 is what we're working on right now in the PDF. Okay, so we're going to go ahead So I'm going to go ahead and put the zipper pull on the left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and give it a try out and see how it looks. And if everything works out good, then we're good to go. And so far, so good. There we go. That looks really nice. So here's your recessed zipper. Okay, so the next part we're going to do is we need to find the center. Folding it in half on the recessed zipper does not work. I've tried that several times. This is the front. So you're going to take the front part of the recessed zipper, and we're going to be adding that on there, okay? So I'm going to put some tape on it. Okay, so we have that centered, and just to make sure it's trued up and centered, we're going to go ahead and measure. This is 3 5/8 from that side, and that is 3 3/4 from that side, so we're off a little bit. So I need to bring it back by 1/16 of an inch. Okay, it's 1/16 before 3/4. Go ahead and clip that in place. I'll just run a couple of clips on here. Another reason I'm doing this, normally I don't do it, but this double slip pocket likes to be pushy and it pushes everything around. So I am going to tack this into place this time. You watch my videos, I don't normally tack this in place. But I am now because it's pushing it around. And I don't like it when my fabric pushes me around. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove the other side of the zipper. And we already have the center there, so we need to double check the center here. Just because you fold it in half doesn't make it center. Okay, we're going to put some double-sided stick tape on here. Go ahead and line it up in the center. And walk it straight over to that line that you made that was 1/16 past 3 5/8. Okay, and you're going to do the same thing on this side. Just walk it through and clip it in place. Yep, that's 3 5/8 plus a 16th. And that's 3 5/8 plus a 16th. So we did good. Okay, so I'm just going to run over to the sewing machine off camera. And I'm just going to tack this in place right over that 1/8 of an inch seam line. And then come back and we're going to go ahead and attach the top of the lining from the recessed zipper. All right, I'm going to go sew this. I'll be right back. So this is just another tip. Before you go any further, make sure that this is going to the left. Open it up and see what's there. Make sure that's your back panel. So you're going to the left. It's sitting in front of me. This is my back panel going to the left, okay? If you turn it around, it's going to the right, and this is my front panel, okay? So just another tip for you guys before we go ahead and go to the next part, because there's nothing sadder than when you have to rip out stitches, okay? So if it's going to the right and I go to open it, it's going to be my front. Yes, that's my front because that's the double slip pocket. Just something for you to remember by, okay? Left, left, left is always going to be the back. The back, the back, the back. So here's your recessed zipper. Okay? All right, let's move forward. Go ahead. It's always good to make sure you have it on the right side, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and run some double stick tape again, all the way across. Okay, one more note. If you're going to be pulling down to the 5/8 of an inch line like we do here, just make sure that you have it marked in the back. Okay, so I'm just going to double check it real quick because it looks like somebody might have shifted there. So I'm going to mark it at 5/8 of an inch. Just make sure it still says 5/8 of an inch. I come over here and do the same thing, 5/8 of an inch. Do this before you sew the next piece on, just because it's really hard to mark this afterwards because it's a lot of bulk. Okay, so there's my 5/8 of an inch mark. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to double check my center. Okay, so we're going to center that on there. Okay, we're going to be repeating the exact same thing on this side. Remove the tape backing on both pieces. Line up your centers. We're going to go back in the sewing room and we're going to sew this at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And when we're done with that, we're going to flip it open with some tape. Tape it down to the 5/8 of an inch line. And remember, this gets like this. And I will make a note of that and point it out to you when we get in the other room, okay? Okay, see you back in the sewing room. Okay, so now we're going to be attaching to the recessed zipper to the top of the lining, okay? It's 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitch in the beginning and the end. Go ahead and snip your threads, and we're going to repeat the exact same process on the front. When you get up to where this double pocket is, just push it out of the way and hold your pieces together. It is taped, but it's just better you hold it together. If it looks like it came untaped, just go ahead and put it back in place. Go ahead and cut your threads, and we're going to be switching over to the other camera. Okay, so we have our 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to be folding this from the back side over to that. Go ahead and put some tape on there. If you want some extra footage on this, you can go ahead and look at the Secret Sew. I did a Kelly. I went ahead and pushed my stuff down like this. Well, if you sew here and you're pushing it down the wrong way, your recessed zipper is going to be down inside your pocket. Your recessed zipper always needs to be up like this because you're going to be top stitching here. So go ahead and fold that backwards and line it up on the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance that I gave you in the markings earlier for. Some of these pieces are really thick, so you might have to finagle it a little bit to get it in there. All right. If you have a big thick piece like this that doesn't want to go down, just walk it on there, and you might have to go ahead and hammer it in place because you don't want that coming up while you're doing your top stitching. If you have places like this that are really thick, you probably need to hammer them down. Okay, so I got those hammered down now real well. And we're going to go ahead and top stitch a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. My tape isn't holding so well right now, so I need to go ahead and get this top stitch in place now so it doesn't shift and move. So we're going ahead and doing a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch in the beginning and the end. When you get to this really thick place, you may have to use a hump jumper or just go slow so it doesn't go off. And just continue on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And go ahead and cut your threads and repeat the exact same thing on the back side. Okay, so now that we have the front and back finished, we're going to go ahead and flip these this way. I'm going to set up my seam allowance for 3/8 of an inch because that's what's called for in the pattern, and I'm just going to mark it on the back of here too. Then you're going to clip your sides to sides. Make sure that these are going to be lined up properly the way they go out, and they look great here and on this side too. So I'm going to go ahead and put some extra clips there. And then I'm going to set up the sewing machine. We will be sewing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're sewing the bottom of the lining together. Okay, this is a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I did go ahead for a construction stitch. My seam allowance is now at 4 instead of 4.5. Because this is the bottom of the bag and it takes a lot of force on it. So you need to take a little bit smaller stitch here. Okay. Back stitch in the beginning and the end. When you get closer up here, just make sure that these two are staying lined up. Because you want that to be the same right here and here. Okay. They like to shift a little bit sometimes. So sometimes you're just going to have to walk it over there. And it's also a very thick seam. So I'm walking it through. Or you may even have to use a hump jumper there. We're coming back up on that seam again. And you want to make sure that those are the same. So I like to just go ahead and pull everything apart and just look to make sure they feel like they're the same, and they are. I'm sorry if my hands are in the way, but I do need to make sure that that stays. Okay, and then you're just going to go ahead and go all the way through, back stitching in the end. Go ahead and cut your threads. If you're deciding that you don't want to do the drop-in lining, instead of sewing this all closed, you're going to leave it open from here, but probably from about right here to here. So then you can just turn the bag inside out, and instead of folding it down to the 3/4 of an inch line, you're going to leave that off and you're going to sew a 3/8 of an inch line. Okay, I'm going to go put stabilizer on this, and then I'll meet you guys back at the work table. Okay, so now that we have the bottom sewn together, now we're going to move on and we're going to go ahead and close this up. So when I'm on the sewing machine, I sew from the bottom up. Okay, so now we're on page 35 from the follow along from the PDF. We're on number 67, where we're doing the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance to a 1/4 and doing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on the box corners. So what I like to do here is I go ahead and draw a 1-inch line here on all my sides that I'm going to be sewing on. This one will be my seam allowance at 3/8 of an inch. So I'll go ahead and mark the 3/8 of an inch on this side only. And then when I come up here, I also have my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. But then what I do is when I'm at that 1-inch mark, when I'm on the sewing machine and the needle's here, I'm going to start to veer over to this 1/4 inch mark right here. Okay? And I'm going to show you this on the other side. Okay, so that's when I'm sewing on this side. I start here and I end over here. I have my 1-inch line marked here. I'm going to mark my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to stop right there. And then I'm going to veer off over to this 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you followed along and did as I suggested, when you go to put this together, this is where that 5/8 of an inch fold down I told you to go to. I'm going to go ahead and clip this in place. That's your 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's what you want to have lined up, okay? Look how perfect that fits. Okay? So I'm going to clip that in place. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to clip this in place so it's squared for my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm going to go ahead and clip this in the middle. Okay? And you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And you're good to go. So we're going to go in the other room and sew this at 3/8 of an inch. This is one time I will go ahead and put staples in a couple of places just to keep it secure, because it's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. It will keep it from getting out of the way. Okay, I'll see you back at the sewing table and we'll get this closed out. But when we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and sew this 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on the bottom as well at the same time. Okay, so we have this set up at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to back stitch in the beginning and the end. This is on a construction stitch at 4. I do have my hum jumper engaged on my machine so I can go over the heavier stitches there. We're starting from the bottom up, and you need to back stitch well in the beginning and the end. If you have staples in there, be sure to be careful of the staples. I do have staples in mine at this time because I want to make sure that this is staying straight. When you get up towards the top of your lining, before the hump, take your time. You want to make sure that these two pieces are lined up. And remember, when we get to the 1-inch line here, we're going to be veering off to a 1/4 inch. So we're at that line mark now. Now we're going to go ahead and lift up the seam allowance, and we're going to go ahead and angle and start going up to 1/4 of an inch. Be sure to back stitch well here, because this is a high traffic area for stress. Go ahead and clip your threads. If you have staples in there, you can go ahead and remove them now. Okay, at this time, I would recommend you to go ahead and open up your seam and make sure that it's lined up, and it is. Then go ahead and double check it from the other side as well. And that's perfect. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and put a reinforcement stitch right there because this is vinyl and I want to make sure that it's holding well. So just put a stay stitch next to it. Don't go over the same seam. We will be butterflying the top together. So you cannot go over that one, but you can do it right there. Go ahead and cut your threads, and we're going to repeat the exact same thing on the other side. Now you can go ahead and go in the other room and iron this seam open. And then we're going to come back and we're going to go ahead and sew the 3/8 of an inch on the bottom. Okay, so I went ahead and pressed this open with a seam iron, and now we're going to go ahead and line up our middles. My rule of thumb on stapling now after I threw out my timing is, if it's a thick material or a very important thing, which this is, and it's out of my seam allowance, I'll go ahead and staple it together. So I'm going to go ahead and staple this in the center. And then I'll go ahead and put another staple on the side here. And one more on the other side. That's it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, so that I can get it under my sewing machine and everything works out well, I'm going to go ahead and clip it here on the sides so that I can get underneath there and get that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And a stay stitch over that. Okay. So it's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're back stitching in the beginning and the end. And if you do have staples in there, please be careful of your staples. Generally, when I'm in the middle, I will go ahead and back stitch a few stitches. Okay, pull that off and go ahead and cut your threads and double check if you did mark a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance that you did hit your seam allowance. Because a lot of times in the center right here, it'll push itself away. Because I like to make sure this is going to hold and it's not vinyl, I will go ahead and run another row of stitches from the other side. Because it's not going to affect the bag. And it gives it an extra set of stay stitches. So back stitch in the beginning and the end. And back stitch well on your corners. That's it. I used to cut my corners or cut this off all the time. I learned the other day that it actually gives better structure to the bag. So I won't be cutting this off, but I will be removing the staples. And that side is done. Looks really nice from this side. Looks really beautiful from the inside. Okay, now we're going to repeat the exact same process on this side. Go ahead and cut your threads, remove your staples. And then if you'd like to, you can go back to the iron again and press this upward or downward so it stays out of the way. And just give it a nice press. And there's what it looks like on the inside. And there's the back side of that one. Okay, I'll meet you guys back at the work table. We're almost there, you guys, at the finish line. So we went ahead and got the lining completely finished. Box corners included. And I need to go ahead and iron this out before we continue on. But I'm just going to leave this like it is. I'm not cutting it off. It gives the bag more stability. So I'm leaving all this here. This is already pressed open. I'll go ahead and turn this down to the 3/4 of an inch line off video because we already did that with the exterior. It's going to be the exact same process. So when I come back, after we make the adjustable strap, we're going to go ahead and finish up the bag. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside. But just to give you a little bit of eye candy so you remember what we're doing. So we're going to be putting this inside of that after we're done with the adjustable strap connector. I'm going to go ahead and put a line down at 5/8 of an inch, which will be right here. And then we'll do another line at 1 1/4. Okay. Then you're going to go ahead and find the center, which is going to be 3/8 of an inch. And I want you to go ahead and mark that here. Turn it around the other way and mark it here. That's going to be your center punch, and we're going to do that on both sides, okay? Okay, you can either use a hand punch, or I like to just use this. You're going to go ahead and punch it in the center. You're going to go ahead and slide on your strap connector and just bring it down and mark it. Okay, that's where it's going to go. And so I'll go ahead and measure that out. That is going to be at 3 3/4 of an inch. So on the other side of this one, which is your hook connector for your slider, you're going to mark 3 3/4 of an inch. So they're exactly the same. So we're going to take our slider first, and we're going to go ahead and put it in. You're going to go down to that line that we marked, which was 3 3/4. And we're going to go ahead and take a pen and mark it. Okay. So as long as that's centered, it is, okay? So go ahead and punch those out. So we're going to go ahead and put our slider on. We're going to come down here like this. We're going to get out our rivets. And remember the rule, it's going to be the same thing all the time. The post always goes to the back, and the cap always goes to the front. So we're going to go ahead and put the rivet in from the back to the front. Okay? And put your cap on there until you hear it snap. Now this one is a little bit closer to the slider, so you're probably going to have to go on an edge to do it, or just be really careful. Then you're going to take your strap from this side over. You want this to be the decorative side sticking out. Yep, I'm just making sure. You're going to add your clip here on the end and slide it down towards the middle somewhere. These are 3/4 of an inch strap connectors. Go ahead and bring it through, and bring it through to the other side. And there you go. That part is on. And here's your other side, all straightened out. Looks good. Now, we're going to repeat the exact same thing. Make sure you have this up. You don't want it twisted or anything. Make sure this is up. Take your next strap connector, slide it in place. Bring it down to the mark where it belongs. And with your pen, go ahead and mark the holes. And that's it. That is your adjustable strap, and it's finished. So when we get ready to finish the bag, we can just go ahead and use it right away. Okay, I went ahead and turned down all my edges on my interior of my bag. And now just remember, this is the front of your bag. The zipper needs to go to the back of your bag, okay? So with the zipper at the back of your bag, go ahead and just walk this into your exterior of the bag. A lot of times I'll just go ahead and drop a couple of weights in there so that I can just see it in the bag a little bit better, and I don't have to work so hard. Okay. Okay, and pull those back out. Now, before you start taping it all off and everything, I would suggest dry fitting it first, okay? So, we're going to take the center, which is right here, to the center of the exterior of the bag, which is right here, and we're going to line those two up. With the erasable pen, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up here a little bit more so I can see, because it's a little bit deep in the bag, okay? Okay. All right. Just move it around a little bit on the bottom of the bag. Make sure everything fits the way you want it. Look at it from the exterior. Make sure everything looks good. Like there's not anything weird looking. If you have some weird stuff here, that's fine. You can block it out with a seam press and some towels. And then hang it up to dry for a day. Okay? So that looks really good. Now I'm just going to double check it here. I'm going to walk it across. Make sure everything looks together good. Looks good. Good. Take these clips out. I'm going to go ahead and walk this over too just to make sure everything fits good. It's going to fit good. It's like you say, you got to trust the process. Everything looks really, really good. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and remove my tape and stick it together and put some clips on there. And then I'll meet you back over at the sewing machine and we'll go ahead and sew this drop-in lining together at 1/8 of an inch. See you at the sewing table. Okay, we'll be starting the bag on the back side. This is closing up the bag and we'll be starting on the back side. What I like to do is get it in where I need to sew at the 1/8 of an inch mark, holding it into place and holding my threads because I have to hold my threads on this machine. And I go into that line right there. Bring my needle down and I walk the first stitch because I would need to make sure that it's going to stay where it belongs. Okay. And then I'm going to be pushing this thread out of the way. I'm going to be pushing the recessed zipper out of the way. And then we're just going to go ahead and start sewing a 1/8 of an inch top stitch. There is no reversing because we'll be tying the threads off in the back. Now at this point, I like to pull my threads to the next level. And I'm going to go ahead and tie that off and bring it through the side. Okay, I'm going to rethread my needles and bring them through the middle. Don't tug too hard because you don't want to break your threads. It's happened to me too many times. Okay, now we're going to continue on until we get to that same hole. And then I like to just walk it through to the last hole. So I want to make sure it's going in the same hole. Okay, pull your bag off the machine. Make sure your threads are long. Okay, the next step we're going to do is I need to go ahead and tie this off together all in one piece. So this one I'll pull to the back the other way. What I generally will do is I'll just do 2 sets of 2s. Okay, I'm going to turn the bag around because I need to see what I'm doing. Hopefully you guys can see it too. We're going to go back in the same hole that we stopped in. So they're both the same. There we go. Don't pull too hard. And then what I like to do is I like to make a double knot here so that they're all together. Don't pull too hard. And then do it one more time and don't pull too hard. This happened to me too many times. I've trusted my thread, I pulled too hard and I broke it and I had nothing but problems. Okay, so got that all together. Now you're going to be loading up all 4 of your threads on one needle. I cut it at an angle so that they load up easier on the needle. Okay, so when you get all 4 of your threads on the needle, you're going to bring it down and straighten it out. And because I'm more towards the back and I want to be one more over, I'm going to go ahead and bring this in and down. I'm going to go down. There's a lot of sticky tape there. So I'm going back in the area that I was in, and I'm going to bring it out here on the side seam. Keep your threads straightened out. A lot of times it's a lot easier if you just bring a pliers with you and pull it into place. Pulling gently, you don't want to tear nothing. Basically, you want to tuck that knot down inside the bag without compromising. And that's it. Your threads are hidden, they're secured, and then you're just going to go ahead and cut it off with the scissors. So this is what our bag looks like now. It's all closed up. Now we're going to go back to the work table, and we're going to go ahead and put the zipper pull on and then the zipper pull stop, and put our adjustable strap on and enjoy our new bag. Okay, so we're finished with that now. We got our lining dropped in. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the zipper stop. What's on this bag here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get my zipper pull put back on. Okay, and what I like to do is pull it all the way on and just double check it that it's sitting in the bag properly, which it is. So the next part I like to do is just make sure that it's going to fit. I like mine to sit in that little area right there, just so that it looks nicer. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark that so I know that it works there. So what I do is I bring my scissors in at an angle to that mark, because it works best for me if I go ahead and put them together first and then snip off what I don't need. So you have like a letter V there, okay? Well, next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and burn this area just so I know nothing frays away. And then I want to go ahead and fold this in so it's going to look nice and clean. Takes a little finagling, but you can get it. Generally, I just will bring it in here to the center. Then I'll pick it up here and fold it in so that it's centered. Okay. Then I hold it there and I burn it. I burn it everywhere. Be careful if you're using this method so you don't get burned. Then I know that's where I want it to be, so I cut that little tip off so that it's going to fit inside my zipper stop. And then I go ahead and burn it some more. Just kind of got to get it the shape to the letter V. And then I do a dry run with my zipper stop. See if it's going to fit like that. A lot of times you have to pinch it. And we're going to go ahead and slide it on just to make sure that it fits. I call it dry fitting. Okay. Just kind of play with it a little bit. Make sure it looks nice. It's kind of twisting a little bit, so just turn it back and then just let it fall down. Make sure it's what you want. And you want it to basically cup downward so it looks nice and clean. Okay, that's the way I like it. Then I'm going to take a stabby and stab it in the back. This is like the true meaning of back stabbing. And then I'm going to take my screw. So then you're just going to go ahead and screw it in and tighten it up real well so that it's flush with the screw hole post in the back. Okay, so then what I normally will do for aesthetics is just bring it down here in the hole, and then I test it. Make sure it works. And it does. Okay. So what I want to do now is go ahead and test it out with my adjustable strap. Make sure that works too. All pretty. Now, you do need to block your bag so you don't have all this wonky stuff going on. You also are going to need to mark and clean off any of your pen marks you have on the bag. And one of the suggestions I went ahead and said in the group is, when you steam block this, you block it with towels and steam block it overnight. And then you could go ahead and hang it up like this too, because that'll help the handles sit straighter and better. If that doesn't work, then what I will do, with the towels in there, I'll flip it over on its back like this. Then I'll take a bigger ruler and just set it on top of there and let it sit overnight. Okay, so that is your zipper stop. The bag is completely finished. We have 2 of them now. One is for Ashley. So this is it. We have 2 bags done. Now I have 5 completed. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this sew along with me step by step. This was a really long tutorial, and I hope to see you guys again. And thanks for the encouragement and the views. I really appreciate you guys supporting me. All right, until next time, choo-choos!